Welcome to Girls Playing Sports Channel. If you're new here, be sure you slam dunk that subscribe button, and don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss any exciting moments from the world of basketball. But wait, there's something special today, isn't there? Have you ever imagined a world where women's basketball started with no dribbling allowed, no fast-paced basketball or powerful dunks? Just limited passes, slow movements, and even no holding the ball for more than 3 seconds. Are you thinking, how could that be? But then, a revolution happened. A game no longer just for men, but one for strong, resilient women who never stop pushing forward. From those tough beginnings, how did women's basketball evolve into a sport full of power and excitement, where powerful dunks and high-flying moves have become the norm? Today, we're going to explore the incredible journey of women's basketball. From its first steps to the thrilling games on the global stage. Here's a little twist. Did you know that from the very beginning, female athletes weren't allowed to dribble? Join me as we uncover the story of that transformation and the names that are shaking up the world of women's basketball right now. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Let's get started now. Oh! The story begins with a woman named Senda Berenson, an educator and coach at Smith College, Massachusetts. In 1892, Senda Berenson saw a special opportunity to develop the sport of basketball, a sport originally created for men. However, Senda didn't accept these limitations. She realized that women could also play basketball and showcase their physical abilities, but the sport needed to be adjusted to fit the needs of female athletes. So, she decided to completely change the way the game was played. Senda Berenson didn't just create a game, she built a way for women to express their strength and resilience. She decided to divide the court into sections, limit physical contact, and change the way players moved. She succeeded in introducing these new rules not only at Smith College but also across colleges and YMCA organizations nationwide. This game gradually became an essential part of student life and helped shift perceptions of women in sports. And so, in 1892, the first women's basketball game was held at Smith College. This was not just a game but a historic milestone for women's basketball. Imagine it's the year 1892, a prestigious women's college, Smith College, suddenly becomes the stage for one of the most revolutionary moments in sports history. Not a grand invention, but the very first women's basketball game within the brick red walls of the campus. A group of young women eagerly prepare to step onto the court. There are no roaring crowds, no blaring music like the arenas we know today. The audience is simply their classmates, eyes filled with curiosity and excitement. And then the whistle blows. History is written. Senda Berenson, driven by her vision to open new doors for women, turned that moment into reality. She had designed special rules. The court was divided into 3 sections. Each player had to stay within her zone. Stealing the ball was forbidden, and no one could hold it for more than 3 seconds. The game wasn't nearly as fast or explosive as the basketball we know now, but it carried within it something far more powerful: courage and beginnings. There were clumsy passes, awkward runs, and nervous laughter, yet together, they painted a vivid picture of a moment when women, for the very first time, claimed their place in a sport once thought to belong only to men. It wasn't just a game, it was a bold declaration. Women can play basketball, and we will go even further. And from that very moment, a new journey had begun. In the years following that very first game, the spark ignited by Senda Berenson quickly spread across America. From the modest gymnasiums of women's colleges, women's basketball began stepping into the light, turning into a social phenomenon. Colleges and universities started forming their own women's teams. Each institution adopted slightly different variations of the rules, yet all shared the same desire: the passion to play, to compete, and to prove themselves. Clara Gregory Bear, a physical education teacher at Sophie Newcomb College in New Orleans, wrote the very first book of women's basketball rules. She called the sport basket. The name didn't last, but the milestone did. Women now had a rule book of their own. What made this era unique was the audience. At the time, most spectators were women themselves. They came not only to watch the game, but also to celebrate solidarity, pride, and the spirit of womanhood. One particular match at the Southern Athletic Club drew more than 560 women in attendance, creating an electrifying atmosphere that was extraordinary for its time. Of course, the journey wasn't without resistance. Critics argued basketball was too rough, too dangerous for women. But those doubts only fueled the determination of female athletes to prove otherwise, to show that not only could women play, but they could also shape an entirely new sporting culture. Women's basketball was no longer an experiment in school gyms. It had become a movement, a quiet revolution spreading from classrooms to communities, planting the seeds for a future filled with greatness. But the road to the growth of women's basketball was never paved with roses. From the 1930s through the 1970s, serious challenges began to arise. Society was still bound by prejudice. People would say women shouldn't play sports that are too aggressive. It takes away their femininity. Many competitions were restricted, and numerous games were never officially recognized. In some places, spectators mocked instead of cheered, treating it as a novelty act rather than a legitimate sport. Even the rules themselves became barriers. Strict regulations dividing the court into 3 zones, limiting movement, banning direct ball challenges persisted for decades. Critics began to ask, is this even real basketball anymore? Yet in that very darkness, the resilience of female athletes shone brighter than ever. They endured every restriction, every doubtful stare, simply to keep the flame alive. They weren't playing only for themselves, but for the generations of young girls who had never yet set foot on a basketball court. These struggles did not stop them. On the contrary, they became proof that women did not need permission to play basketball. They deserved a fair stage, and they were willing to fight to claim it. More than a century after Senda Berenson first brought basketball to the women of Smith College, the landscape has transformed beyond imagination. Women's basketball is no longer just an activity confined to schools. It has become an integral part of the global sports stage. Today, millions of fans tune in to watch the electrifying games of the WNBA, the world's premier professional league for women. On those grand stages, stars like Diana Taurasi, Sue Bird, Candace Parker, and a rising generation of talents prove that women's basketball is not only equal, but carries its own unique excitement and appeal. But the change goes far beyond the court. Women's basketball has become a cultural symbol, a powerful voice in society. It is deeply tied to movements for gender equality, freedom of expression, and the empowerment of women everywhere. These athletes are not just players, they are role models, activists, and trailblazers, inspiring generations to dream bigger and fight harder. From the restricted passes and rigid rules of 1892 to today's deep three-pointers and thunderous dunks, women's basketball has traveled an extraordinary journey, and the story is far from over. Every new generation of athletes, coaches, and fans, fresh chapters continue to be written, because basketball has never been just a sport. It is a declaration of power, freedom, and equality for all women. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey through the history of women's basketball and the pioneers who shaped its legacy. If this story inspired you, don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next chapter of basketball history. And remember, women's basketball isn't just about the game, it's about power, freedom, and equality. But the story is still being written, and you are part of it.